Hey, how's that going? Is that good? I told you I probably don't need the speaker. All right. So my name is Anthony Russell, and this is the talk on geo-distributed bug bounty recon. There we go. Okay. So I've been a professional engineer for about 10 years now, and I've done all types of stuff from working on content management software and tire software and factory floor software, all types of stuff. I've built intrusion detection systems. You name it, I've worked on it. If you saw Sam's talk right before this one, I made an entire career out of XAML development. It's a lot of fun. But something I've done in my free time is security. I really love security. It's something that, as engineers, we really need to think about a lot, and it's something I take really serious. Oh, I'm also into Web3 development. I don't know if anybody does that stuff, but it's a lot of fun too. This talk that you're going to see today was inspired by a paper I published in 2600. The magazine, if you guys haven't read it, it's really good. You can get it on Amazon and also at Barnes & Noble. Okay, how we got here. So, a little hard to see. How many people here are engineers? Raise your hand. There we go. There's my engineer fam. How many people also work in security? All right, a couple of you. Nice. All right. So, if you haven't been in security and you're interested in security, here's some books that I recommend. These ones here on the bottom right here, the Art of Intrusion, Art of Deception, and Countdown to Zero Day, those are novels, or they're written in novel format. The first two are by Kevin Mitnick. Who here knows who Kevin Mitnick is? All right, yeah, a few people. Really famous guy in our field. Unfortunately passed away earlier last year, right before Defcon. Very sad, very big loss to the community. But these two were his books. I was fortunate enough to meet Kevin at a couple different Defcons. And I got him to sign one of my books. I got one of those cool laser cut business cards that are our lock-picking kits. Yeah, he's a really nice guy. He presented this thing where you could walk into like a coffee shop or whatever and scan NFC like business cards from across the room. It was really cool. So if you don't know who Kevin Mitnick is, definitely recommend reading his books and learning about him. It was a big loss to the community. This one right here is about Stuxnet, also a true story. If you don't know what Stuxnet is, it's kind of a big deal. You should read about it, learn, and dig a little bit into how it actually worked. It's pretty interesting. It's amazing what kind of stuff countries are up to. And then if you're actually trying to get into hacking, these books up here are all really great. So the Hacker Playbook is probably my favorite. I believe they're on the 3rd edition now. I have editions 2 and 3, I think. Every single time I go to do something with bug bounties or playing some of the hacking games we're going to talk about, or if I'm trying to do an engagement for what company I work for, I always pull out the Hacker Playbook. Not sponsored by them, but it is a great book. It breaks down a methodology, and that's kind of what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about methodology. Also, the 24 Deadly Sins and Black Hat Python, definitely great books. Python is really important when you're doing a lot of this red teaming stuff. A lot of the tools, including the tool I'm going to present today, is written in Python. So speaking of tools, let's go over some of the tools really quick. This is Kali, and this is Parrot OS. These are operating systems, Linux operating systems that are pre-configured for doing red team stuff, doing hacking. We're going to talk a lot about ethical hacking and a lot about the tools, but if you want to get started in it, you're definitely going to want to download these. at least one of them. I prefer Kali. I've used Parrot. I've used them both extensively. The tool that I wrote works on both. They're both pretty good. Also, something you're going to want to learn about is called Burp Suite by Portswigger. This tool is really great if you're going to get into bug bounties. This is like the Swiss Army knife of bug bounty. It lets you do all types of stuff. I'm sure a lot of you are probably familiar with Fiddler. This is like way more advanced, but it has that same idea. It lets you view the history. You can modify packets that you've captured and modify them en route. You can repeat them, all types of stuff. It's got like endless amounts of features, and I use Burp quite a bit when I'm doing bug bounty. Another couple tools that we're going to mention are Nmap and Amass. Once again, probably way too much involved in these tools to give a real good idea of what they do, but you're going to want to learn how to use the CLI tools in Kali and in Parrot OS, and these are a couple examples. You'll also use Netcat a lot. Anybody use Netcat? All right, there we go, a couple people. Yeah, so if you've used Netcat, you know that that's actually the Swiss Army knife of hacking. You can do everything with it. But Nmap is great. It's going to help you figure out like what ports are open. It has built-in scripts for you to run against services that are running. It'll help you. You can give it like huge lists of hosts, and it'll run scripts over those hosts for you. It's really good. Definitely check out Nmap, and if you can, check out Amass. And then once you have your operating system and you know what tools you want to use, you could start playing things like Hack the Box and VulnHub. Anybody play Hack the Box? All right, yeah, there we go. We got a few Hack the Box. I love Hack the Box. I've been on there for years. Hack the Box is, they have a free version, and they also have one that you can pay for like premium access. Essentially, it's a free network that's set up with a bunch of vulnerable machines. And you can just go in and freely attack them. You connect to their network, and each one's a little bit different. You'll learn different things. It's really great. I have a bunch of write-ups on my website, .NET Russell, about Hack the Box, as well as VulnHub. VulnHub's a little bit different. VulnHub, it's still vulnerable virtual machines, but you can download them and run them locally. So if you're going on a long flight, or if you're not trying to get into the whole game, design stuff, you can just download a machine and hack on it at your own pace. And yeah, VulnHub's really great. It's managed by Offensive Security these days. They're the ones that make Kali, and they do a really great job. They also accept walkthroughs. So if you have your own blog and you want to write about the things you've learned, go ahead and send it in to VulnHub. They will likely publish it. Okay, and then finally, bug bounties. So I'm guessing we have some active bug bounty people here. Who's doing bug bounties? Anybody? All right. Yeah, so bug bounties are great. Here's two sites that are very popular, HackerOne and BugCrowd. So we talked a little bit about Kevin Mitnick. 10, 20 years ago, these sites didn't really exist. And if you wanted to hammer on some public site, you really ran the risk of going to prison. There's some stories about people that we won't get into, but putting like enumerating an ID in the AT&T URL and going to prison. That's a real story. That happened. We don't have to worry about that stuff as much anymore because we have sites like HackerOne and BugCrowd. And what they do is they provide a platform for companies to list their bug bounties. And some of them don't pay anything if you find stuff. Some of them do. and some of them can pay a lot. I know people that have made entire careers out of this. It's probably not going to be you. Most people might make some money. It's nice to find stuff and get a payout, but it's difficult. The field is saturated, but there's all types of great stuff you can find, and that's what we're going to talk about. So, the struggle. The struggle of hacking. So, when you're trying to get into this stuff, you got to map the attack surface, and you got to figure out what servers are live and what services are running, what ports are open, what versions there are, all types of stuff. There's lots and lots of things you need to do. One of the things that you start with is called Recon, and this is covered in the Hacker Playbook, but one of the things you start with is Recon, and you want to figure out what your attack surface is. I mean, you could just go to a website and start hammering on it. I mean, you might find something, but if you really want to be successful with bug bounties, you need to have a methodology. You need to have a path that you take every time, make it the same. That way you don't miss anything. Quick tangent, I was a police officer in the Army for a lot of years, and when we would search people, when we would train our soldiers to search people, we'd always say, it doesn't matter if it's a person or a car, whatever, every single time you do it the same exact way. That way you don't miss something. You know that if you started here, you end over here. You know if you end over here that you got all these things because that's how you do it. It's also easier to articulate it in court if you do it that way, but that's not a part of this. If you're trying to do a methodology, if you're trying to build a methodology, definitely look at the Hacker Playbook. It'll give you an idea of what you need to do, but we start with Recon. And the bug bounties are actually nice because they give you a scope, okay? They give you your starting point. They tell you, hey, I want you to look at this domain. I want you to try and find these things. They give you an idea, okay? But that's like 0.001% of what you need. So the first thing we do is we take those domains and we want to find all the subdomains. And one thing that you could use is this tool called Sublister. What this tool does is you give it a domain, and it'll go out to all of the search engines. You can see here it's looking at Google and Yahoo and Bing and Ask and all these different things, and it's finding subdomains for you. It's a passive recon tool, okay? This tool is great. Ensemble also does this. There's a lot of tools that find subdomains. I recommend using multiple tools, okay? Don't just stick with one. Use multiple tools. They'll give you different outputs. But this is part of the struggle. So once we get all those domains, can anybody tell me what the problem is here with these subdomains? So we went to Google, and essentially we went to all these search providers, and we scrape subdomains out of them. Does anybody know what the problem is with these subdomains, though? That's it. That's it right there. They may not be active. So if you work for a company and you guys set up some service, and then you tear that service down, Google doesn't know you took it down. Like, it's still indexed. So you might pull back, it says 1,500 right here, right? But if you check to see those 1,500, if they're still active, you may only have 10 or 20. These might be years worth of, setting up servers and tearing them down. So what we have to do is enumerate all of these subdomains, all these targets, and we have to figure out which ones are up. So that's thousands of requests we have to make. One way we can do this is we can use Nmap. We spoke about that earlier. This is a ping scan, and what it'll do is it'll go out to a target and tell you if it's up or not. What's nice about Nmap is you can actually pass it a file full of targets, and it'll give you the results back. You can ask for it in greppable format, all types of stuff. So Nmap's great for this. You can see here that this one, I ran a few through here, not all of them, but I ran a few through here, and one of them came back, said it was still up. Keys, QAHDC.bestbuy.com. I don't know what that is, but if I see QA in there, that sounds like a good target to me. Like, I want to go after something that's a QA environment. That might be something good. That may also not be QA. It might be part of the name or something, I don't know. But we did try and resolve this, and it does hit a server, and it does return a response. It's just not something that you would expect to see in a page. But there is a server responding, so might be something we want to look at. Okay, so let's go through a practical example here. So we go to our bug bounty websites, and we start looking for what program we want to take part in. We're going to take part in the Twitter program here for a second, and Twitter identifies 7 domains in scope. Okay. Does anybody know what the asterisks mean? Wildcards, right, yeah, subdomains. So what they're saying here is not only can you look at Twitter, you can look at everything under Twitter. So if you find dev-01.twitter.com, then guess what? That's in scope. These are the things we want. Okay, this is really the things we want. We want to find the things that are off the beaten path. Because as engineers, you know that when you develop software, you develop a golden path, okay? Even if you don't know you're developing a golden path, you're developing a golden path. I promise you that Twitter has spent millions of dollars hardening their login page that gets hit 1 billion times a day from across the planet. I'm sure they have checked SQL injection and cross-site scripting, every possible way that you can and can't imagine. We don't want their golden path. We want the side window that some intern left open. I want the service that some freshman intern spun up on one of their servers and left public and nobody knows about. I want that because that's in scope, and that's going to get me behind their application firewall and expose their data. The whole point of the bug bounty is that we want to simulate what an attacker is going to do. We want to find those holes, and that's what you're going to get paid for. So, yes, going to a site and trying to find cross-site scripting and SQL injection on their page, yeah, sure, you maybe will find something. I highly doubt it, but on something like this. But there are low-hanging fruit out there that are just waiting to be picked. So I ran Twitter, those seven domains in scope. I ran those through Sublister, and I got 1,449 domains back. Now, this is a ton of work, especially if you're at the keyboard and you're trying to hammer out commands. I mean, you're going to be there all day. I don't know how anybody's supposed to go to Costco or do anything if you're sitting there trying to figure out 1,400 hosts, see if they're up, and that's not it. Finding the active domains is just one little piece of it. Once you find those active domains, now we need to start actually doing our scans. We need to figure out, so every server has a possibility of 65,535 ports, I think, something like that. So there's a lot of scanning to do. So we need to reach out, find all of our active hosts, then we're going to start scanning them to see what services are up and running. We're going to run NIC2 over the web servers. We're going to run WP scan on WordPress sites. We're going to look for SSH servers, their versions, web dev that's unsecured, FTP with anonymous login. We're going to look for all those things. And that's a lot of work. I mean, even if only 10% of those hosts are up, you could be talking about thousands and thousands and thousands of requests that you have to make against each of those hosts. And if you don't have it scripted in some way, I mean, that's going to be your whole life. And I'm telling you this because that was my whole life for a while. My wife got really great at gardening. She, she filled our house and all of our yard with plants and stuff because I was hammering on the keyboard. she had other stuff to do. So, you know, what we're going to try and do today is empower you to get away from the keyboard a little bit and automate some of this stuff. Another thing that you're going to run into is geographic DNS. So has anybody run into this before? Does anybody know what geographic DNS is, GeoDNS? A couple people? Okay. So it's not a trick question. GeoDNS, it's very popular. It's all over. Essentially, what it says is if you're in Australia and you make a request to Google, you don't want your request to have to go to San Francisco. You want a server that's close to you. Same thing if you're in Germany or Iceland or even the US. Like, you want the servers that are closest to you. That's, in a nutshell, that's what GeoDNS is. It's great. It's great user experience. The problem, though, is if you're trying to do a bug bounty, you are missing literally like 90% of the attack surface. So this diagram, not super important. It's just kind of illustrating what GeoDNS is doing. I ripped this off of Microsoft, so shout out to them. It's just showing that they have a traffic manager and that traffic manager is routing you to the server that's closest to you geographically. Bless you. So how do we get around GeoDNS? What we're going to do is, well, there's a couple existing ways. You can use a VPN. You can use something like proxies. But the problem with VPNs and proxies is that they're not automated. So you'll have to log in to your North American VPN. You'll have to log into your European VPN. You'll have to log into the African VPN and the Australian one and the Asian one. You're going to have to maintain all those, and then you're going to have to rerun those thousands of commands again across all those environments. That way you're getting 100% coverage. It's very laborious. And as engineers, we know that a lot of repeated manual commands leads to errors and bugs and things missed. So, not the best way to do things. That's where Ensemble comes in. We'll talk about Ensemble in a second. Let me get a drink. So, excuse me, that's where Ensemble comes in. So Ensemble is a free open source tool that I've been working on for a couple years. It's not pretty, so don't look at the code. But it is open source, and if you want to contribute, you're more than welcome to contribute. But what Ensemble does is it enables you to set up a cluster across the world using something like DigitalOcean or Amazon or Azure, your flavor, whatever you want. I use DigitalOcean for it. But what I did was I set up a cluster in different regions of the world. That cluster reports back to a director, and that director presents everything in a nice web page, nice web interface. This is an example of what Ensemble does. This is kind of a diagram of how it works. So you, the user, right here, you're on your phone or your computer or whatever, and you log into the director. You get a nice web interface, and we'll take a look at it here in a second. I've got a couple demos. You log into the director, and this is your cluster right here. You have nodes in all these areas. You're going to issue a single command to the director via the web interface, and the director is going to reach out to your cluster and issue that command. Now, there's different ways we can issue it. We can issue it to run equally across the cluster. An example of doing that or why that would be important is like if we're trying to see if there's different servers in each region, for example. Maybe we run a ping on google.com, I don't know, something like that. It'll report back the IP address, and if there's different servers, we'll get different IP addresses. We'll know that there's more than one target. Now, if you ran that just from your attacking machine, you would just get the one. So that's one way we can use the cluster. Another way that we can use the cluster is those 1,500 subdomains that we need to iterate over. One thing we can do is we can split those up over the cluster. And right now, the only way we have, it is load balanced, but it's just round robin load balancing right now. I'm looking to implement some different ones. I am getting health stats back from each node in the cluster, so we can actually, weigh it and see which ones can take more on, but that's not implemented right now. But each of your nodes in the cluster reach out to the traffic manager, the GeoDNS traffic manager, and it requests, resolve the endpoint, and then you'll get these targets in the different regions. So that's what Ensemble is empowering you to do. And like I said, if you wanted to do this without Ensemble, you'd need to use a VPN or a proxy. This is the dashboard right now. It shows each of your nodes in the cluster up there. It also has different workspaces. So this is one of the really cool things about Ensemble. A lot of people run one bug bounty at a time. What if you want to run 3 or 4 bug bounties? What if you want to run them on scheduled? Maybe you want to run some scans this week, and then you want those scans to run again next week or a month from now. You can do that with Ensemble. It's all enabled. So right now, I have a Twitter workspace set up, and I have it scanning regularly. It goes out and pings the servers regularly every week. That way, if intern Schmuckatelli comes and sets something up, I'm going to know. And that's actually a big problem with bug bounty hunters. They ignore the fact that companies don't exist in a vacuum, okay? Companies, their attack surface is constantly changing. And if you're not rerunning your scans, you're going to be missing things. These are just a bunch of screenshots of Ensemble. We're going to actually look at it here in a minute. But this is the agents. These are the nodes that are set up, their health stats, if they're online, when the last time they checked in. This is the scheduled jobs. We'll take a look more at that in a second and how you create them. Let's actually look at that now. Okay. So I'm going to pause and play here a couple times. This is the login page. This is what you would first see with your phone or the browser. I'm sure you've all seen a login page before. It's the way it's built is every single time you run the directory, you get a unique, freshly generated certificate. So no 2 certificates are the same. This is safe. This is safe. Quote, safe, to deploy to the web. Deploy at your own risk. All of the connections to the nodes in the cluster also come with a symmetric key that is generated at runtime, so everything should be unique. If you find a problem, open a pull request, please. This is a look at the dashboard. Eventually, I'd like to make it so you can click on the nodes and get some more data, but you can see where the nodes are and see if they're active. If they go inactive, they'll disappear from the map. You can see there's some job statistics down here. It'll tell you how much load is on your network. This is switching between the workspaces. This is switching over to the Twitter bug bounty. Here's the agents page. And so on the agents page, we can see the history of our agent. We can see the health stats of it. We can kill all the jobs. We can restart the agent. You can also see the running processes if you need to inspect to see what's hanging. And then we head over to the jobs page. Now, the jobs page, it lets you see what's running, what has run. You can go back in time and see different results of stuff. And the scheduled jobs, when we get there, we'll look at it. But the scheduled jobs, here it is, they will actually show you a difference, a diff. So if you're an engineer, you understand what a diff is between changes. This will actually take the output of the previous scan and your current scan and tell you if something changed. So why is this important? Well, if you're doing script scans, you'll be able to see if versions change. You'll be able to see if new ports open, all types of things. It's actually quite useful. Now, obviously, I would still be taking notes in something like OneNote as I'm doing my bug bounty, but this is a nice way to help you along the way, because otherwise you'd have to do that by hand. So here's an exist of the subfinder output. Okay, so here, this actually looks a little bit better now. This was early on in development when I made this video. It shows you the underlines here on what changed. So yeah, that's going to be really nice if you're running multiple bug bounties and you're looking for new services that popped up, because the sooner somebody identifies that, they're the one that's going to get paid. If you haven't done a bug bounty before, if two people submit the same bug, usually the payment goes to the first person. So you want to be the first. Another nice thing about, I'm going to let this play, you can watch for a second. Another nice thing about doing these bug bounties and finding the low-hanging fruit is there really are things out there with anonymous login and default credentials. There are absolutely things out there. Just before I did this talk, I actually presented this at Defcon, what is it, like 6 months ago? Earlier past year, August. Right before that, I was doing a bug bounty for an internet service provider, a big one. And it was the same deal. I put their domains into a subdomain finder. I found, probably 10,000 subdomains, something crazy. I wrote a script that went over those subdomains and found the hosts that were active. Then I went over every active host and I found what ports were open. And I came across, it was like 5 or 10 of these hosts out of thousands that had this really weird SSH service that I hadn't seen before. It was some off-brand SSH, and it was running on a non-standard port. So that kind of stood out to me. So the first thing I did was I went to, Dr. Google, and I looked up, this SSH name and the version. And the first thing that pops up is, oh yeah, this thing deployed with default credentials. So I'm like, there's no way, right? There's no way that this massive ISP has default credentials on SSH into one of their public-facing sites, right? Sure enough, the very first one I tried let me write in admin. And I was able to, it's a big deal. It's a big deal because then once you have access, admin access on that box, I can start putting malicious things on there that customers are going to interact with. It's a big deal. So not to mention that, you're behind their firewall possibly, depending on how they have their setup deployed. It's not good. Another example that I like to tell people about is very similar story. There was a government agency that was doing a bug bounty. Same deal. They say, hey, everything that's blank, blank, blank.gov is in scope. So that's what I did. That was early on. I wrote a script that went out and found all the subdomains, and sure enough, I found one that had WebDev running on a non-standard port. It was really weird. So just tried logging into it with default credentials, and sure enough, it let me in. We're talking on a government server. So these things do exist. The low-hanging fruit is a great way to get your feet wet because, especially if it's on a program that doesn't pay bounties, that's a really great place to start if you're looking to break into this stuff. Let's see, what else we got here? So these are the examples of the job results. So in this job here, this one was run equally across the entire cluster. So it's showing that it ran this one command on the 4 different nodes, and here are the 4 results of the 4 nodes. Let's see. There's also a really bad-looking event stream. So if you're interested in seeing what's taken place in your cluster, you can see that there. Creating a job is really easy. So it does deploy with some default templates. You can modify it and add your own templates in there in the settings. There's lots of different ways you can configure this. You can configure it to run as a single command, load balanced. You can schedule it. You can put in you can actually physically type in here commands as well, and it'll run across your cluster. Let's see. So this is just an example of scheduling one. And then you put your targets in here, and I know I only put 1 target in there, but you can put a ton of targets in there. Just make sure they're delimited with a line break. And then your jobs get scheduled. Now, there's also a nice feature that if you run a job, and after you run it, you want to schedule it to run repeatedly, you can actually just duplicate that job. You don't have to go back and redo it. Here's an example of the settings page. You can go in here and delete the templates that you don't like that I put in there by default, but you can also go in and add your own. Bless you. So that's adding a new command. And this command will be available across the application. And then one final thing I want to talk about the settings page before it moves on here, is this command string up at the top. So getting an Ensemble server, an Ensemble cluster set up is quite easy. So I have one running on this machine right here. It's just a series of maybe 2 commands, two command line commands. You run one for the director, and then you get this one here in the settings page to set up your agent. That's all you need. It includes the symmetric key right there. Don't worry, that key's no good anymore, but it's pretty simple to set up. I think you can set one up. If you have a configured machine, you could probably set one up in 5 minutes. All right, let's close that. So I wanted to leave some time open at the end here. If anybody wants to download Ensemble or contribute, this is the GitHub repo. You can reach me on Twitter or X, whatever we're calling it, at .NETRussell. I'm usually on there if I'm pretty accessible if you have questions. Or if you want to contribute to the project, please go in there and do a pull request. We got one person that set up a nice Docker file thing for us so we can just deploy it with a Docker file. Yeah, that's Ensemble. Does anybody have any questions about ethical hacking, bug bounties, or Ensemble? Right here. That's something that, so the question was, does Ensemble support dynamically spinning up machines? Not yet, but that's definitely in the timeline. So that was the idea behind making it so I could shut them down and restart them, and the health stats. I wanted to have a watchdog service also. It's a work in progress. It's a little above my pay grade. I'm working on it. But yeah, good question. That's exactly what I'd like to go with it. And if you want to contribute, feel free. Right over here. Actually, so the question was, Do I know of any areas in IoT bug bounties that aren't super saturated? That's actually a good question. Just IoT. Oh, so I don't know. Do I know of any bug bounties that aren't saturated in general? Well, IoT is actually a good one, I would say. Also, like application bug bounty testing. So the majority of the people in bug bounty testing, based on my own perspective, is people that they just have a web browser. They probably don't even have Kali installed. That's probably like 70% of the people in this. You know, they're just going to a website and hammering on it and hoping they find something. And then there's people that are a little more serious about it. I'm probably in that category where, like, you know, I have the setup, I know a little bit about what I'm doing, and I find stuff on occasion. And then there's like the super hardcore people that, you know, they'll decompile applications and they'll look through stuff for, you know, hidden keys and things like that. I would say that last section where you're decompiling software or you're looking at like APKs, like Android software, on HackerOne and I'm pretty sure on BugCrowd as well, they enable the companies to list like their phone apps and stuff as targets. That's probably a great place if you are looking for something that's a little less saturated. That's where I would go. Now you can, if you know a little bit about networking and you want to look at those apps, you can do that. You can man in the middle your own device and see the traffic that's coming in and out of it. You can do all types of things like that. That'd be a good spot to start. Any other questions? Up here. Yeah. So the question was about Try Hack Me, as opposed to HackerOne and VulnHub. Yeah, I love Try Hack Me. I've used it. We set up at a couple different companies I was at. We set up like fun days where, you know, like a lunch and learn or whatever. Try Hack Me is great for that because it's very approachable, lots of good content. I love Try Hack Me. They also do some really cool stuff around the holidays. They do like special CTFs and stuff around the holidays. So if you're, that's very approachable. In fact, I would suggest Try Hack Me before VulnHub and HackerOne. I'm sorry, Hack the Box. Any other questions? All right, I can't see, so I'm assuming there's no more questions. If you have one, just shout it out or come down and meet me down here. Once again, I'm Anthony Russell. Thank you so much for coming to my presentation on Ensemble.